Hey everybody, and welcome to week number 7. We are well over halfway through, or getting up to the point of being halfway through the class. So congratulations for staying with it, doing a nice job. So highlights of this week are, number 1 is your milestone 2 is due this week. It's due on Sunday, the 30th, as I'll get scooch over on the schedule. So make sure you've got that complete. If you have any questions about it, certainly let me know. And really what you want to try to do is use some of the feedback I gave you for milestone 1 and try to see if you can improve some of those things in milestone 2. And if you have any questions about it, if you're struggling with any part of it, please let me know sooner than later, and that way I can help you get through it, and so you can get it done on time. This week in particular, we're moving on with the 4 P's of marketing, and we're going to talk about pricing. Last week, you spent a lot of time talking about or considering, what goes into the product itself, completing the marketing equation, and making sure that what you have built into your product, from a features and benefits standpoint, match what your target market's looking for the product, what their needs and wants are. So that's a simplistic equation that's not easily done, but it gives you an idea of kind of like the framework that you have to think about when you are actually putting together the product. But some of you might have been thinking, the price that I sell it at also is going to have a lot to do with what goes into this whole equation. And you would be right. And so we're going to consider pricing this week. Pricing, however, is a fairly complex decision to make. And it's not easily considered in a textbook, to be honest with you, because there's so many dynamic things going on, and it really depends on the market and all the other things that are going on. So it's a fairly complex decision to make, and one that requires constant feedback and understanding. So we're going to take a brief overview of it, but it gives you a pretty good idea of what goes into it. So what you want to do this week is read chapter 9. This was not originally part of the class, but I thought I'd put them in because it might give you some clarity. I took some recorded videos I had done for this class as video lectures. You're more than welcome to look at those. I have them listed to look at. It talks about the role of pricing and some of the considerations that go into pricing. They're brief videos. If you want to look them over, feel free. It's not a requirement for the class. You don't have to do a what's your take part of that assignment, but if that helps you understand more about how we're going to focus on pricing, then I would suggest you take a look at those 2 videos. You want to read the chapter and get the chapter quiz done by this Thursday, and we also have a discussion post this week, just so you know, and it has to do with a video content that I want you to look at, and what is dynamic pricing and how does it affect e-commerce. It's a really interesting topic. And it's kind of the direction that a lot of pricing is going. It's, again, based on all the things we've been talking about in the class so far. The data that we can collect, the introduction of artificial intelligence, all those things come into play in terms of like creating what they call a dynamic pricing environment where it constantly is changing. Maybe an example I could give of that would be not in the e-commerce space, but it's just something that's being done. And it's been fairly controversial, is the demand pricing that the writer, I'm kind of spacing out here, sorry. That companies like Uber use. So if it's a really, really busy time, they jack up the rate. A lot of people don't like that idea, but it's kind of something that gets built into using artificial intelligence. Using data to help drive algorithms that say that they can get away with doing that. Basically, is what it comes down to. So, and obviously that doesn't sit real well with people, but nonetheless, that's what they've tried to pursue. So dynamic pricing is a really interesting one. I'm really interested to hear your take on it. What are the pros and cons of it? I can give you personal insight into it. It is a very tricky thing to do and do well. I know sometimes people think they can write programs to do everything, but pricing is one that you have to be very, very careful with. And I've seen it work very poorly. So anyway, long story short, please post your original post by this Thursday, and then reply to your classmates' post by the end of the week. So there's a lot going on with pricing that we want to take a look at. It's going to be part of Milestone 3. I know I was going to introduce Milestone 3 this week, but I think it makes more sense for me to move that off to next week, because we are going to talk about, in Milestone 3, we're going to address pricing and also our channels of distribution, or what was otherwise known as place, as being one of the 4 Ps. So there's a lot of things going on there. So let's take a look at what goes into Chapter 9 and what you want to take away from it and from the text. So there's a lot that it's talked about in Chapter 9. Again, please bear with me when you look at what Milestone 3 says. We're going to make this a very limited and fairly simplistic decision-making process that we're going to go through, because this is actually, pricing is fairly complex on a real world basis. So, but they go through a lot of different things that go into what are considered in pricing. So your learning objectives for this text chapter are to be able to discuss the importance of pricing, why marketers spend so much time thinking about it, discuss the role and impact of price on supply and demand. We're going to introduce some theories of economics that are fairly basic and well understood, but we'll bring those into the equation. You want to describe when to position a brand for low pricing, when you want to position your brand for high pricing, and compare how to achieve profits via selling more units or higher margins, because pricing is ultimately a balancing act between having your price represented in the marketplace the way you would like, but you also have to take in the very real consideration of the profitability of the organization, which is directly affected by your pricing decisions. So, it's a real balancing act. It's not easy to do. You want to describe how the new world of behavioral economics helped marketers nudge customers towards buying at certain prices. I'm not sure I would call those new world, but I would say they're fairly traditional things that people have done. And that goes under a lot of different terms, but one of them is called psychological pricing. And so take a look at that. Also, you want to use more complicated pricing schemes like nonlinear pricing. Those are kind of interesting to look at as well, and explain why marketers change prices, such as over the product, as it's affected by the product life cycle. We're going to look specifically, because we're introducing our product for our project is a new product introduction. So there's it's kind of one of those things to think about as like this. You can only introduce a product once, which was basically true. And with that in mind, how do you introduce your product, and then how does that affect your pricing strategy? And then what do you want it to be ongoing over the rest of the life cycle of the product? So we'll talk about that a little bit more when we talk about Milestone 3. But those are things that are real considerations that you have to put in place. So again, as we look at it from the marketing management framework, we're on the 4 Ps, the last of these sections. And we'll be talking about the other ones in the future classes. Those video lectures that I put out there, just understand they're a little out of context for this class. The content itself is fine, but there's things like it's going to talk about another video lecture that's coming along, and we don't have those for this particular section of the class. You're not missing much because you're reading a lot in the textbook as well. Okay, so that's it for this week. Don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions, concerns, anything that's going on. And good luck with it.